the Nazism did not take ideas from Sanskrit. They took a distorted idea. They distorted. So there's a big difference between, saying I'll take your idea and do something bad and accuse you, then you get accused that you sourced it, versus that I actually distorted, I actually twisted and shifted your idea, and then I did something bad. So the real reason is nothing to do, it starts 100 years before Hitler. You should start a story in the beginning. The discovery that Sanskrit was very close to European languages was very well received by Germans in particular, because they were looking for a prehistory for themselves. Every major country in Europe had an old narrative about its glory, which they taught to their children to be proud. So the French were the successors of the Renaissance. The great Renaissance, they were the current successors. So that's what they taught. That they teach the whole history of the ancient stuff and all that, Latin and all that stuff, and then it comes to Renaissance, and we the French people are the successors of that. That was their grand narrative. The English taught we are the empire. That's who we are. The sense of self is we are the empire. So like that, Spain had, great history of the sailing and discovery America, all that kind of stuff they could talk about. So Germany had nothing. Germans were known in European textbooks as barbarians. You know that. Germans were known until around 1800, they were taught in German textbooks that history is history of barbarians. The people who had been destructive, they really had no past of glory. To create a unified Germany out of many small nations, out of many small kingdoms, required a narrative. Exactly like India needs a grand narrative to be together. We better have one. So to create that grand narrative, there was a lot of struggle going on. Are we Christian? Who are we? Is it racial? Is it religious narrative? But we need a unifying narrative for Germany. And that is when this whole thing was introduced, that, we are the Sanskrit people, because it's very close to our language. So we must have been those people. It couldn't have been those Indians. How the heck could they have done all this? All those texts and all the great things came out of our ancestors. And now we know our prehistory, we have a grand narrative. So to give the German people an ancient grand narrative, the appropriation of Sanskrit was a very important device. So this you have to understand. I've explained this in Breaking India and other places. So the creation of Germans, patriotism, chauvinism, back in 1800s, this is a century before Hitler, starts with this appropriation, misappropriation of Sanskrit and Sanskrit texts. And we glorify them because they also praised it, but they praised it as their past. They praised it, it's like I steal your stuff, and I keep praising it as something my grandfather did. That painting I actually took from your house, but I've called it my grandfather's painting. He did it. So obviously I'll praise it, right? So the praise is, you have to understand, the praise comes from where? Okay, so this whole German Indology is based on that. So and then certain things would not fit. How to fit the religious ideas with Christianity could not be done. So this is 60, 70, 80 years of debate among German Indologists on what do we do about the religious ideas. We love the poetry, we love the science, we love the mathematics, there is astronomy. There's so many great things, it must be our ancestors have done all that. Okay, so we should figure out that this Aryan homeland was somewhere in the, Europe or wherever it was. Okay, that's where our ancestors came from. So we want to co-opt and appropriate and claim this as our heritage. But what to do with this religious conflict with Christianity, because there is no mention of this Bible stuff. So then one of the guys comes up with this idea that we'll take the tribes of, the sons of, this guy, Noah. The sons of Noah, this is also in Breaking India, the sons of Noah, so they went in this direction, that direction, so one of those went and became the Indians. And so we'll try to bring them as part of the biblical, we'll make them part of the biblical stuff. Now that didn't fit because the dates wouldn't fit, so then they started fabricating these dates, that this had to have happened later. Vedas had to have happened after Noah's flood, all that stuff, So it has to, everything has to fit so that their religion and philosophy kind of the global thing, and under that various branches, and Vedas can be one of those. That was the idea. So that way we can have, you can say that that's a distorted version. Then there's another debate. Okay, if this, the religious part of the Vedas is sort of to be explained in that way, then do we accept it as our cousins, that they are our cousins? Do we accept it that they're not our cousins? Were they superior to us? Were they inferior? Again, many Germans taking different sides. Many Germans taking different sides on the relationship of the spiritual side of the Vedas and Christianity. Many of them. And one of them was that basically when our ancestors took the Vedas to India from Germany, along the way it got corrupted and distorted, and so now what those guys got is that religion is not a valid one, but originally it was Christianity. But then that wouldn't fit because Jesus' dates are not older than Vedas. How can you make that happen? So this gymnastics was going on. This gymnastics was going on, and then, because what the Germans wanted and what they wanted to reject were two different things. What they wanted to accept was language is ours, and the beauty and the poetry and the science and the mathematics, everything that is useful is ours. But anything religious-wise that contradicts Christianity is somebody else contaminated it. So now with these parameters for research, whoever is funding that research, with these parameters you've got to come up with a solution. So every German coming up with theory after theory, and in Breaking India I've given you a list of several of these. There was this Friedrich Schlegel, Augustus Schlegel, many of these people were there. Hegel was there, involved in this game of interpreting India vis-a-vis Germany. So this is a 100-year story that goes on, and it's got distortion after distortion built in. So this habit of taking what works, symbols, language, words here and there, to create a kind of a portfolio of your own greatness and your own great narrative is the project to build Germany. From the early 1800s to the early 1900s, early mid-1900s, that has been Germany's nation-building project. You have to understand that.
Hey, are you awake? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Are you sleeping? You need to wake up. Wake up. The world needs you.